Hello everyone, welcome back to this channel. Donetsk has once again become one of the most intense battlegrounds in the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Nearly every inch of this region is contested, with intense military operations involving infantry, armored vehicles, artillery, and even drones monitoring every movement on the battlefield. In this video, we will discuss battle footage showing Ukrainian forces attempting to defend and retake positions captured by Russian forces. The fighting took place at very close range, in a network of trenches and buildings that served as key defense points. Both sides launched relentless attacks, while every decision on the front lines could determine the survival or loss of a position. How did this operation unfold? What tactics did both sides employ? And why does the Donetsk region remain one of the most strategic points in the war to this day? Let's get right into it. At 9:30 a.m., Donetsk was still shrouded in tension, the sun already high when a Ukrainian armored vehicle began moving toward the front lines in the Donetsk region. Inside, a squad of soldiers prepared for a highly dangerous mission, approaching a network of trenches suspected of still being occupied by Russian troops. Their journey was not easy. Every meter they traveled was potentially under surveillance by surveillance drones, while artillery and surprise attacks could come at any moment. Nevertheless, the armored vehicle continued its advance, delivering the soldiers as close as possible to the battleground. Shortly after reaching the location, the soldiers immediately dismounted and moved quickly to cover. They learned that Russian troops were still entrenched within the interconnected network of trenches. This was where the operation began. Their goal was not simply to approach the enemy position, but also to clear every trench line that still served as a Russian defense. In this type of battle, the distance between the two sides was often only a few meters. Every bend in the trench, every small bunker, and every piece of rubble could be a deadly hiding place. Slowly, the Ukrainian troops began combing the forests and trenches. Communication was concise and clear, while each soldier kept a close eye on each other to anticipate any sudden attacks from the front or flanks. In such a situation, the slightest mistake could be fatal. Soon, the sound of gunfire began to grow closer. A firefight was inevitable, marking the beginning of one of the most dangerous close-quarters battles on the Donetsk battlefield. Amidst the increasingly intense firefight, each soldier moved cautiously. They utilized trees, mounds of earth, and trench walls as natural cover. There was no room for reckless maneuvering, as one wrong move could immediately reveal their position to the enemy. From the front, return fire began to grow denser. Russian troops hiding within the trench network soon became aware of the Ukrainian squad's presence. The firefight escalated into close-quarters combat, with both sides battling for control of the narrow passages that served as the main routes of movement. The situation became even more complicated when drones began buzzing overhead. The presence of drones made every movement extremely calculated. Both Ukraine and Russia attempted to use aerial intelligence to pinpoint their opponents' positions, leaving soldiers on the ground with little opportunity to move openly. Despite the pressure, the Ukrainian squad continued to advance gradually. They did not launch a hasty attack, but instead cleared the area piecemeal, ensuring no threats were left behind. In operations like this, coordination between soldiers was crucial. Several explosions were heard around their positions. Earth fragments and splinters flew from the gunfire surrounding the trench. Smoke began to fill parts of the battlefield, further limiting visibility and increasing the difficulty for both sides. Amidst the chaos, radio communication was constant. Any information about the enemy's position was immediately relayed to the other squad members, so they could adjust their movements. Speed of information exchange became as crucial as marksmanship. As time passed, the battle entered an increasingly critical phase. Both sides struggled to maintain their positions. No advances were easy, as every meter of territory came at a significant cost. The sounds of rifle fire, grenade explosions, and artillery booms echoed, making the area one of the most tense battlegrounds in Donetsk that day. But the greatest challenge was not over. Amid the ongoing firefight, several soldiers were reported wounded. Now, the Ukrainian forces faced an equally difficult choice: maintain pressure on the enemy position or risk their own lives to evacuate their wounded comrades. Minutes after the firefight began, the pressure on the Ukrainian squad intensified. Fire from the trenches forced them to take cover while searching for openings to advance. Meanwhile, Russian troops also attempted to defend their positions, utilizing the interconnected trench network for cover. Amidst the exchange of fire, several Ukrainian soldiers were reportedly injured. This made the situation even more challenging. Their comrades had to maintain cover fire and ensure that the wounded were not left behind on the front lines.
Братан, що сказав?
Говорит, пидоры уёбают. Надо быстрее идти по...
Підари уйобуй, догоним, підаров!
For the time being, the Ukrainian squad chose to hold their positions while waiting for a safer opportunity. They continued to return fire and tried to prevent any enemy advances from getting closer. At the same time, radio communications continued to request support and update the situation on the ground. Explosions were heard intermittently. Smoke began to cover parts of the battle area, while drones could still be heard circling above the battlefield. In such a situation, soldiers had to be aware not only of threats from the front, but also from the air, which could reveal their position at any moment. Upon closer inspection, the Ukrainian troops' operations were not rushed. They employed a fire and movement tactic, where some soldiers provided suppressive fire on the enemy, while the rest of the squad advanced to find a more advantageous position. This strategy aimed to limit the enemy's movement and reduce the risk of changing positions. Furthermore, they utilized trench networks and terrain contours as natural cover. Rather than moving in open areas, the soldiers chose to move from one point of cover to the next. This tactic helped reduce the likelihood of detection or direct fire from enemy positions. Coordination between soldiers was also crucial. Each movement was carried out in turns, and not the entire squad advanced simultaneously. This pattern ensured that there were always personnel ready to provide cover if their comrades came under surprise attack from within the trenches. At the same time, information from reconnaissance drones was allegedly used to enhance situational awareness. In modern warfare, drones are used not only for attacks, but also to provide real-time images of terrain conditions, so commanders on the ground can make faster decisions. When several soldiers were injured, operational priorities shifted. Rather than forcing the attack, the Ukrainian squad maintained pressure on the enemy while waiting for a safer time to evacuate. This decision demonstrates that maintaining personnel safety is a crucial part of combat operations, especially when evacuation vehicles are still at risk of being targeted by fire or drones. This footage demonstrates that the success of an operation is not solely determined by firepower. Discipline, clear communication, utilization of the terrain, and coordination between ground forces and drones are equally crucial in close-quarters combat like that seen in Donetsk. Many have asked how Russian troops were able to hold out in trench networks for weeks, even months. The answer lies in the function of the trenches themselves. In modern warfare, trenches are not simply holes in the ground, but rather defensive systems designed to allow soldiers to survive for extended periods under constant threat of fire. Trench networks are typically interconnected, complete with bends, communication lines, and simple bunkers for shelter. This design aims to reduce the impact of artillery blasts and prevent enemy fire from sweeping across the trench line in a straight line. Furthermore, troops on the front lines generally do not remain in continuous defense without replacement. They typically operate a rotation system. When the situation permits, some soldiers are withdrawn to rest, while new personnel take their places. In this way, combat capability is maintained, even over prolonged periods of combat. After slowly breaking through the front line of defense, the Ukrainian squad began to capture part of the trench network that had previously held the Russian troops. However, their operation was not over. In fact, the greatest challenge began when each tunnel and bunker had to be searched one by one. In trench warfare, the threat does not always come from the front. An enemy soldier could be hiding behind a narrow corner, an underground shelter, or a bunker hidden from the surface. Therefore, every step was taken with great caution and always under the protection of teammates. While combing one of the bunkers, According to circulating footage, Ukrainian troops discovered several Russian soldiers still holding out inside. After their position became surrounded and their movement became increasingly restricted, some of them eventually surrendered and were secured by Ukrainian troops.
Тут нормальный блиндаж. Не знаю,
Such incidents are not uncommon, but they are also not impossible in close-quarters warfare. When a position is surrounded, its route of retreat is cut off, and support from other forces is no longer accessible. Some soldiers may choose to surrender to avoid further casualties. However, this decision depends on the situation each unit faces on the ground. Successfully capturing a bunker has significant tactical value. In addition to eliminating enemy firing points, the attacking troops also gained cover previously used by the enemy. These bunkers could then be used as temporary defensive points before moving on to the next sector.
Пацаны, не стреляйте! Пацаны без брони, без оружия, с поднятыми руками!
However, the operation was not yet complete. Trench networks typically stretched for hundreds of meters, even kilometers, and were interconnected. Capturing one bunker did not mean securing the entire area. There was still the possibility of another group of troops defending the next tunnel or waiting for an opportunity to launch a counterattack. Therefore, the Ukrainian squad did not rush to continue their advance. They reorganized their formation, checked every connecting route, and ensured that no threats were left behind. In operations like this, discipline and patience were often as crucial to success as the firepower they carried.
Пацаны, выходите с поднятыми руками, вас никто не тронет! Лис, Алтай!
With the capture of several Russian soldiers and the capture of several defensive points in the trench network, the intensity of the fighting in that sector began to gradually decrease. However, the operation was not truly over. Ukrainian troops continued to comb every tunnel and bunker to ensure there were no threats still lurking or ready to launch a counterattack. This type of battle demonstrates that capturing a trench is not simply a matter of boldly charging forward. It requires excellent coordination, rapid communication, disciplined movement, and the ability to read the battlefield. The slightest mistake can change the course of an operation in a matter of seconds. Furthermore, this footage also demonstrates how the nature of modern warfare has changed. Drones serve as eyes in the sky, constantly monitoring every movement. Armored vehicles serve to deliver troops as close as possible to the front lines, while the trench network remains a formidable defensive fortress despite the constant advancement of military technology. From this battle in Donetsk, we can see that victory on the front lines is not solely determined by the number of personnel or the strength of the weaponry. Factors such as terrain control, inter-unit coordination, intelligence support, and the ability to make decisions under pressure are equally important. It's important to remember that the footage we're discussing today only shows a small portion of the overall situation on the battlefield. The conflict in this region involves numerous operations occurring simultaneously, so developments in one sector may not necessarily reflect conditions across the entire front. What do you think? Are trench-sweeping tactics like those used in this footage still one of the most effective strategies in modern warfare? Or will the development of drones and reconnaissance technology change the way ground combat will work in the future? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to read your analysis and insights. If you enjoy in-depth discussions like this, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe, and activate the notification bell to stay updated on the latest videos about developments in the Russia-Ukraine conflict, military tactics analysis, and weapons technology from various countries. Thanks for watching. See you in the next exciting discussion.
Яма, 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 впереди яма!